Okay, well, welcome, everybody. It's 5:30. We're going to go ahead and get started because it looks informally like we have a quorum. I thank you all for coming. Let's go ahead and do a formal roll call. Andre Allen,
Hi, or here, sorry.
Okay, Demario Boone,
Here.
Shalandra Birch,
Shalandra's here.
Shalandra, sorry, I do that every time. Terry Burnside, Eric Echevarria,
Here.
Kevin Evans, Allison Galvin, Nikolai Greaves, Chanel Hargrave Murray. She did say she's coming, so maybe she'll pop in later. Don Jackson, Lorraine King.
Present.
Thank you. Lee Lang,
Here.
Tyson Parks III hasn't he's told us he'd be absent. Catherine Shidley,
Present.
Alex Sierra, Karen Wilson, and Janice is here. Okay, so unfortunately, I have to read this. I think I need to read this. It's not on the agenda, but I have to read this public notice to y'all. Sorry about that. Over and over again. The public notice. Okay, we're getting one more here. Whose office for Peoria? Could you identify yourself, please? Oh, connecting to audio. Office for Peoria, would you please identify yourself? Hello, Office for Peoria.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got to change my name. For some reason, this is Joyce Durant. It always comes up.
Okay, thanks. Welcome, Joyce.
Yeah.
So we've already taken roll, and right now I'm going to read the Governor Pritzker's gubernatorial proclamation. So Governor, and I see Mr. Jackson's in the house also, so thank you. Governor Pritzker signed a new gubernatorial disaster proclamation extending the statewide declaration through February 6, 2022. With the signing of this disaster proclamation, public meetings can continue to be held remotely per the requirements listed below. All meetings with customers should be done on a remote platform, if at all possible. For public meetings that have already been noticed, we will need to renotice in order to provide the updated information. 1, standard 48-hour notice, except for an emergency meeting, to all members of the public body, posted at the meeting location on the public body's website and provided to any news media that has requested notice. 2, during the meeting, participating members must be verified and must be able to hear one another as well as hear all discussion and testimony. 3, during open meetings, members of the public who are present at the meeting location of the public body must be able to hear all discussion, testimony, and votes of the members of the body. 4, if attendance at the regular meeting location is not feasible due to the disaster, alternative arrangements must be made, and notice of the meeting must include the arrangements that will provide live public access to hear all parts of the open meeting, phone number, link to Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, etc. 5, at least one member of the public body, the chief legal counsel or the chief administrative officer, must be physically present at the meeting location unless it is not feasible due to the disaster. Other members of the public body may attend in person or remotely. 6, all votes must be by roll call, identifying each member and recording their vote on each issue. 7, standard minutes of all meetings must be kept, approved, and made available for public review as usual. And 8, a verbatim audio or video recording of all meetings must be made and available to the public for review. These meetings are public records and must be maintained per the Open Meetings Act. Okay, so we're done with that. So can we get a motion to, so this agenda and the public notice was attached to your agenda package, and along with the meetings of the January 13th, 2022 meeting. Can we get a motion to approve the January 13th, 2022 minutes?
So moved by Andre.
Okay, Andre, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Kat. Okay, so Catherine seconds it. So I guess we'll vote. And I'm just going to go around my little Hollywood squares, and instead of going through the whole roll. So Lee Lang, I see you first.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. Is
That's
it to approve?
Yes, it is. Thank
Okay,
you.
I approve.
Okay, I'm next. I approve. Andre,
Approve.
Shalandra,
Approve, sorry.
thank you. Lorraine,
Yes.
Catherine,
Approve.
Chief. Chief, Chief Echeverria, sorry about that.
Approve.
Chief Boone.
Approve.
And Mr. Jackson, you weren't there, so I will say that the minutes then are approved. So the next item is our welcome and wellness check. And so I am very happy to introduce Mr. Jackson. I don't know if you want to turn your camera on or not, but Don Jackson will be representing the NAACP, taking Nina Guggis's spot. And what I'd like to do, I kind of have a tradition each time we get somebody new on the committee, have him introduce himself, and then let's go around and introduce ourselves. I am particularly thrilled because Mr. Jackson was on this committee when I first joined, and I believe he holds a lot of institutional knowledge about why this committee was formed, what its mission statement is. So I'm really glad we were able to twist his arm and get him back on here. He took a little break and we're not, his break is over. So we're going to put him back to work. And Mr. Jackson, if you would, could you give us when you introduce yourself, could you give us the short introduction, and so everyone else can share in your institutional knowledge as to how this, the rationale behind why this committee was formed and what you perceive its mission was at the time, so that people are kind of all on the same page. So I'm going to start with Mr. Jackson, then I'll go around the Hollywood Squares again, so you all can introduce yourself to him. And I'll go ahead and mute myself. And I really want to thank you all for having your cameras on. I appreciate it.
Well, just as by way of introduction, when I was the president of the NAACP locally and the state president at the same time, we received a number of complaints, especially from individuals and especially African-American males in the south side of Peoria, in that they were complaining that they had been pulled over on numerous occasions for various and sundry kind of charges. For example, if their front left wheel touched the lines intersecting two streets or bisecting two streets, they were pulled over for allegedly unlawful lane uses. That's an example of some of the reasons. But the whole purpose of the stops were to get them to allow the police to do a vehicle search, and with the promise that if they didn't find any drugs in the car, that they wouldn't issue them a ticket for unlawful lane usage. The most egregious was a situation where a young man during the wintertime was driving on the south side, and a police officer stopped him and said he could hear his loud music from 2 blocks away with their windows up. And the man was threatened with having his car towed for loud music unless he agreed to allow them to search his car. Well, I then contacted the Justice Department, and we had an investigator from the Justice Department come into the city of Peoria. And we met with city staff, the mayor, the city members of the city council, the chief at the time, we discussed these allegations, and as president of the state, I knew that Rockford, for example, was putting together a police advisory committee, and there were several other states that already had them, advisory committees. And so the whole discussion took place. We talked about having an advisory committee in the city of Peoria as well. And from those discussions with the Justice Department convening and holding the discussions, we ended up with the Police Advisory Committee. From there, we met several times to try to gather information on some of these unlawful stops and to try to put a stop to them. The whole purpose was for citizens to be able to come to a different organization than having to go to the police department to file complaints. Many people simply objected to going to the police department to file complaints. Well, in the organization of the Police Advisory Committee, we did secure an agreement with the city that they would be able to go to other locations to file complaints if they had complaints about anything, including these so-called stops for a lot of different reasons. And at that time, when we first started, they were able to go to the Urban League or come to the NAACP or Community Action Agency, wherever they wanted to go to file a complaint. And the reason for that was they felt like when they went to the police department, whoever the sergeant was on duty at that time that they went to make their complaint discouraged them from filing complaints. And they were also afraid that they may get arrested simply because they, however unfounded such fear was, that just by virtue of going to the police department. So that's how we got started. And the mayor, the NAACP has a permanent spot on this organization, but the mayor is in charge of appointing other people to the commission. That was our agreement. The one drawback to what we were able to negotiate is that we had no authority to make binding recommendations about penalties that police officers should have to serve for unlawfully stopping people in the South Side or any other infractions of a citizen's rights. That we were not able to negotiate, but we thought it was more important that we get the Police Advisory Commission organized and operating, and then we would work on trying to make amendments to its formation and rules and regulations. A number of cities have much stronger ordinances than we were able to negotiate, but it was more important at the time to get the organization established. Unfortunately, the word it didn't get around to people, and I think during the years that I served, we only had one citizen who came forward and came to us. They came and listened to our meetings, but in terms of actually filing a complaint with us, we only had one during the time that I served on the commission. And it wasn't like there weren't complaints out there. One of the things that we did during my tenure was we actually held our meetings in places other than in City Hall. We met twice at Carver Center, and those meetings at Carver Center were well attended, and there was standing room only. We also met at the library in the 5th District. We also met on the riverfront in the facility owned by the Park District on the riverfront. So we thought it was necessary that we take the show on the road. We also met at St. Francis over in West Peoria. And so we thought it was important to take the show on the road so we could actually hear from the citizens, because we simply weren't getting what we needed to hear from citizens in terms of bringing their complaints to City Hall. So after a little while, I simply got frustrated because I didn't think the commission was fulfilling its purpose. And that's why I asked to be replaced. But I'm happy to be back. I'm happy I got a fresh view of the commission, and I hope I can serve and help us do what we were intended to do from the very beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. We're going to do our best here. I'd like to welcome Mr. Burnside and Miss Wilson. Hey, everybody. Christine, if you can record that they're here. Okay, so just to catch you guys up, we are introducing ourselves. Mr. Jackson is new to the commission for a second time here, so he just introduced himself. Then we're going to go around with introduction of each of us to him. So the way I see it, and do me a favor, thank you for having your cameras on, but would you mute yourselves when you're not talking? Lee Lang, you're first to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Lee Lang, the 2nd District Representative. I became interested in this committee after I spoke with Mayor Ali about the House Bill 3653. And I've done a lot of research on that. I've also done a lot of research on civilian review boards. So nice to have you here.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, let's see, Andre. Well, you know, I'm going to let Miss King go next because I know she's got to leave soon. So Andre, I'm just hold that thought. Miss King. Lorraine, you're muted if you're talking. You just,
Sorry.
oh, there you go.
Lorraine King, and I've been on for, I think, 7 years maybe. And I started out as an at-large representative, and now I'm the representative for the 3rd Council District. Retired from U of I College of Medicine.
Thanks, Lorraine. Andre Allen.
Hello, Mr. Jackson. Always a pleasure to be in your presence, sir, and welcome back. We served when I got on the commission a couple of years ago, and then I ultimately became chair, and now I'm our council liaison now that I've been elected to the city council. And so excited to have you back. You know, you bring a wealth of knowledge, and we look forward to your presence.
Thanks, Andre. Okay, Shalandra.
Hello, my name is Shalandra. I think I've been on the committee maybe 5 or 6 years. I do recall when Mr. Jackson was previously on the committee, when we had the wonderful privilege of meeting in person. So it's good to see you again.
Catherine.
Catherine Shidley. I'm new to the committee, just started, and I hope to learn as much as I can. And I look forward to working with you too, Mr. Jackson.
Chief Echeverria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. How you doing, Mr. Jackson? Me and Mr. Jackson, or Mr. Jackson and I, to be proper, met in my office several weeks ago. So we are acquainted already. So I don't know if there's much more to say. So welcome. Nice to see you tonight.
Thank you. Chief Boone.
Good to see you again, Mr. Jackson. Demario Boone, Peoria Public Schools representative, and Mr. Jackson is definitely somebody I look up to, and I served on the committee the first time with him, and I knew any committee he was on, I was on the right committee. So he's definitely one of my heroes here in Peoria. So welcome back.
Thanks for those kind words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Karen Wilson.
Good evening. Hello, Mr. Jackson. It's always a pleasure. We do our radio show together every Saturday, so I'm very familiar, and it's nice to have you back. I came on, I've been on, I was Southside, I was 1st District representative, and now I am at large, but I came on after he was on there first. So I'm like Demario, whatever he's involved in, we're on the right track. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Terry Burnside.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome back, Mr. Jackson. We appreciate your leadership over the years. It was a pleasure working with you. And because of your nomination, sir, I recall I was one of the guys, well, the guy to take the reins over after Dr. Rita Ali went into the council and into the mayor. Thank you for your leadership, and we're looking forward to working with you more.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We have a local celebrity in our midst here, Mr. Jackson. So we're going to start off with unfinished business.
You forgot Joyce Durant.
Okay, well, she's not a member of the committee, but Joyce, we'll let you introduce yourself. I think that'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'm Don. I'm an observer. And the hat I have on this evening is for the Faith Coalition for Racial Equity. We formed several years ago, and the Police Commission and hearing the interest in and concerns about citizen complaint process, and that we want to make connections and see as this progresses how we can be an ally in that, and what other things the commission wants to accomplish.
Well, that's great. I've known Joyce for a number of years, so she's not a stranger to me.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of local.
Yeah, I know I'm in the right room if he's there, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at a whole bunch of community celebrities on my screen, so thanks to all of you. Okay, so I hope you guys got the attachment. Lee Lang was courteous enough to send that to me, that draft. I have requests in at the Rockford office, and I still have not gotten a clean copy of this. It doesn't say draft on it. I don't know if anybody has that. I don't know if it's even been signed yet, but it's my understanding that this is the draft that was signed. If anyone else has any other information about that, I'd love to hear it.
Janice,
Yes.
I can't find my hands up. The final version has not been published.
That's what I thought.
It will not be published until their website goes up. I think their plans are for their website to go up next week sometime, but you know how websites go. So until, and then it will be published on their website, so you don't have to get it from the mayor's office. You can get it, we can all get it from the website when it goes up.
Well, I wanted to thank you for sending it to me, and I shared it with the committee. Lee gave us a little preview or summary of what was in it last time. I think there's an appetite that I'm sensing on the committee to take a really close look at this document, and we don't have to do it tonight, but if you want to discuss this document tonight, I'm fine with that. But compare this to the ordinance that we have, figure out what we want this committee to do and whether we can do that. You know, what is the best thing this committee can do for our community, and can we do that with the ordinance that we have? You heard what Mr. Jackson had to say, that our ordinance was a compromise, and that's fine, from the moon and the stars that everybody shoots for. But we now know what's possible. And I guess the question is, are there any things in this Rockford ordinance that we don't have that we want to propose to the council? I mean, to put it bluntly. And I don't know if we want to do this as a full committee, or if we want to have a subcommittee dissect this and compare it to our current ordinance. I'm going to kind of open the floor for conversation right now, so you all can talk about, if we do propose changes to our ordinance, who's going to do it? And is that a whole different committee than us? Because this from my very, very cursory review of this ordinance, it's a huge commitment. So I want us to think that it's not necessarily this group that's going to be doing anything different, because that's not what you signed up for. But if you're interested, it's certainly, I think the members of this group should be considered for that. So does anybody, I don't see any little hands up, but does anybody want to, oh, there's something in the chat. I'm not good at this here. Let's see.
Janice, I have a question for Mr. Jackson.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. In the research that I've done on the civilian review boards, one of the things I've found out is that after the steps, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jackson, but my understanding is the steps are, this committee would recommend a civilian review board. The mayor, the chief of police, and the city council would agree to the need of a civilian review board. If they agree to do it, the city council would send to legal the job of preparing the ordinance, and they would approve the ordinance. After the ordinance is passed, the mayor would then appoint certain people. The mayor would appoint the people to serve on the review board. That could be members of this committee or other members of the community. And then after that, after they were selected, then they would go through the training process, and then they would start as a review board. Is that a general synopsis of how it works?
Yeah, that sounds pretty correct to me. Rockford's ordinance, as I recall, was a little bit stronger than Peoria's when they first got the ordinance, but they had a more serious situation in Rockford at the time that it was passed. There was a case up there called the Barmore case that dealt with a young man. He and his girlfriend got into an argument one day, and she called the police based on an argument. And the police were looking for him, and he ran into a church up there that had a daycare center. And the police followed him in the church and killed him in the basement where the children were located at. And that, of course, got a lot of people, a lot of organizations involved with Rockford. And they had a very progressive chief at the time. Not to say that our current chief isn't progressive, but the person in Rockford was much more progressive than the chief in Peoria. I can say that much at the time. And so they were able to pass a stronger ordinance than we were able to pass. But the steps that you have outlined sound like the correct procedure that would need to be followed.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is I've researched ordinances from various cities throughout the state of Illinois and some from out of state, and they all seem to be pretty much the same with a few tweaks for the local entity. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I tell you, when we were first talking about creating an ordinance in the city of Peoria, we actually were asking for the ability to make binding recommendations on punishment for officers who, in fact, were found to have violated the rights of citizens in terms of arrest and that sort of thing. We didn't get that far with our ordinance, although I do know around the country there were other cities that were able to go to that distance. But the procedure that you've outlined, I would suspect, is probably the correct procedure. Anything else?
Oh, I could talk to you about this all night, but there are other people who probably want to say something.
Well, hopefully I'll be around all night and for quite a while afterwards. So.
We may have to have coffee.
All right, sounds good to me.
Do we have our subcommittee forming?
I'm easy to find. I'm at the corner of Main and Terry Street, so anytime you want to stop in, please do so.
Does it sound like we have a subcommittee forming already here to review this? Does anyone else have any questions or anything pop out about the ordinance, the draft that we shared, or have any interest in perhaps serving on a subcommittee to take a look at what Peoria has the ability to do within our current ordinance?
I don't think I got a copy of the draft, but I certainly would be willing to serve on a subcommittee.
As would I, Janice. I do have one more question for Mr. Jackson. How does the Civilian Review Board and like Rockford is the current one that's being established? The first one I found was in 2010. How is this going to conflict with House Bill 3653 with the board appointed by the Law Enforcement Training Act and the governor to review all complaints from police officers at the misdemeanor level.
Well, I've not read, was it House Bill 3683, 63?
53. It's the Safety Act. It's also called the Police Reform Act.
I haven't really studied it, so I can't really respond to your question, but
Okay,
I'll be happy to talk to you about it after I've had a chance to read it more.
Okay.
thoroughly.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so I see in the chat, thank you too for having this conversation, because I think it's important for all of us to hear this. Shalandra has also said that she would like to be a part of a subcommittee that takes a look at this. So I don't know what the maximum number of people is we're allowed to have on a subcommittee before we bump Open Meetings Act, but do we need a motion to create a subcommittee, or can we just say that we now have 3 people on a subcommittee, that Mr. Jackson, Lee Lang, and Shalandra, who are going to take a look at this issue? Do we need to have a motion to set up a subcommittee, or do we just, does anybody know?
I think it would be best to put it on the public record that we form such
Okay.
a subcommittee.
So can we get a motion to create a subcommittee that takes a look at our current ordinance in Peoria and other ordinances? I would think wherever, I guess. I'm not going to limit it to the state of Illinois, because you all will come up with what you think is reasonable. So there's a motion on the table to create a subcommittee. Do we have?
I move that we create a subcommittee to review this draft from Rockford.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have a second? Was that Lorraine? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, so let's vote here. Now, Karen, your proposal was very specific. It was just to review the Rockford ordinance. Is it as broad as to?
Do you need me to amend that and say review both Rockford and anything that they see fit? You need me to amend it to say
I
that?
think particularly the Peoria ordinance, just to see, take inventory of what we.
Yeah, okay.
And then whatever ordinance, I mean, the Rockford is the one that kind of came to the fore because we know it's passed by a city in the state of Illinois. So I think that's particularly relevant. But yes, thank you. So Karen amended her.
Yeah, I'll amend that. Yeah.
And then Lorraine, do you still feel comfortable seconding that?
Yes.
Okay, so Lee Lang will vote. I'll go around the circle here.
Approve.
And next, I say yes. Andre, if he's back yet. Andre's on dad duty right now, so we'll let him vote when he gets back. Shalandra,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
Chief Echeverria,
Yes.
Chief Boone,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. Now what we're gonna do, I think, do we need to nominate the members that have volunteered? Does someone need to nominate them to be on the subcommittee? I will nominate. Do we need to do them one at a time, or can I nominate the bunch of them? Is anybody opposed to me just nominating the 3 of them?
No.
Okay, I'm going to nominate Lee Lang, Shalandra, and Mr. Jackson to serve on the committee. And we also have a volunteer in Miss Joyce Durant to also participate if that's appropriate. So,
It might not be me, it might be somebody else from the coalition,
okay, thanks.
just to clarify.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table for those 3 to participate in the subcommittee.
So moved.
I'll second, James.
Okay, so Lorraine made the motion and Chief Boone seconded it. Is that about right? Okay, so now let's go around. We'll vote on those 3 members. Lee Lang,
Approve.
Okay, Janice says yes. Andre? Andre is heavy into dad duty here. Shalandra?
Yes,
Shalandra's
sorry.
in mom duty. Okay, Lorraine,
Yeah, I am sorry.
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
Chief Echeverria,
Yes.
Chief Boone,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes,
Karen,
Yes.
and Terry.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you all. We now have a new subcommittee to explore ordinances. And we will let you all decide how you're going to do this and maybe have an agenda item monthly, just as to whatever you want to tell us about it. And then we'll take it one step at a time. How's that?
works for me.
Okay.
In fact, I would invite the subcommittee to, if they want to have a formation meeting, to meet in my office. I'm in the Marquette building, ground floor. It's the one with all the oil paintings in the window. And so whenever you'd like to set a meeting, we can meet in my office.
Okay, thank you for offering that. I'm gonna leave it to the three of you to get together and keep us informed. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the virtual town hall series. You can see that I just slipped the word in there, virtual. Unfortunately, we have been informed by the city that at this point in time, planning out to March 24th, we have to have this meeting virtually. We did a site visit at Treewind Schools with George, who is the contractor to the city, to set up the audiovisual, and Mr. Derek Booth. So we are ready to go at Treewind whenever the state opens up. And I sense it's going to be soon, but we just can't plan that March 24th meeting to be in person, unfortunately. We will still have the meeting by Zoom from 6 to 7:30. And the topic that we all agreed on last, I'd like a catchier topic, but it was school resources. I kind of don't want to use the term resource to prevent student or youth violence. So I would appreciate any suggestions for a flyer. Mr. Booth did say he would help us send out the word. They have a food bank there. He was so generous. He said if we were going to have the meeting at Treewind, he was prepared to have the food bank distributing boxes of food to entice people to show up. So I do think one day we will. Oh, that kind of jumps around a little bit to the next topic on there, which was the proposed location of community access to regular meetings. But I do think we will eventually get there to out into the community. And we know that the contractor can make it work with virtual streaming. So the guests that we have lined up that you all proposed are Mr. Booth, who is a resource officer in the school system, District 150. Chief Boone also agreed to be on the panel. Leslie McKnight, who works at the Public Health Department, and her approach is to look at violence as a public health issue. So that is I'll try to ask her to focus on children and students, but I think it's all sandwiched into one issue. And the fourth person that we invited is Jeff Adkins Dutro, who is the head of the school union. I'm in conversations with him. He has not yet committed. He told me he would have a conversation with me about it next week. So we don't know yet. But I do think that if he says no, with these Zoom meetings, I think 3 people might be enough. I'll wait and hear what you guys have to say about that. It's so hard to get everybody to present and get around the circle. I think it could go faster if we were in person. So I don't know if you guys let me know, do you want me to invite somebody else if he doesn't opt in, or do we just leave it at those 3? I think I'm looking at some people on my Hollywood Squares here that have a lot of knowledge about this, like Shalandra and Terry probably others of you also that I think could be a great voice on this panel. If we don't get Jeff Atkins Dutro. So I'm gonna be quiet now and let you guys talk about this. Number one, we are stuck with Zoom for the 24th of March. As after tonight, I'd like to have a topic that we can put in our promotional materials. And then I'd like each of us to promote it however we see fit. And we need to also understand that we have to have a quorum. And I would hate to propose and invite the public and then have to cancel. So if that, I know we all agreed on March 24th, if at all possible, can you seriously make sure we show up? So I'm gonna look at, are there, I saw a raised hand and then it went down. Andre, did you have something to say? Andre, please.
Yeah, well, first off, shout out to you all for being proactive and looking at, you know, an in-person site. And I think when it is time to meet in person, which I think will be sooner than later, as you indicated, Tree Wind will be a perfect site. As far as topic, I think definitely maybe, you know, school resources is cool, but maybe like youth empowerment tools or something a little bit more catchy, you know, as far as a topic. As far as the number of presenters, I think 3 is fine because conversations organically are going to just evolve anyway. And that hour and a half that is scheduled is going to go quick, even in the Zoom space. So I wouldn't worry if Jeff, if he comes back after you talk to him and he, you know, is adamant about committing to it, then we could add him. But I wouldn't go out your way to try to find a 4th presenter.
Okay, thanks, Andre. Terry?
Yes, thank you. I respect it, you know, the guest that's going to speak in respect to school resources, but I strongly believe that there need to be a community voice at that table. I mean, I'll gladly volunteer if I'm welcome, you can get someone else. I just definitely believe someone from the community, yes, definitely needs to be on that panel as well.
Okay, you're hired.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a community resource, and he's one of the resources I know I personally use for kids. So,
thank you.
Well, we appreciate that, Terry. Yeah, and because I'm looking at Shalandra, I'm looking at Terry, I'm looking at Allison, I'm looking at all these people that we have on the committee that provide resources. So, yes, I was actually gonna later on. I was gonna see if Terry or Shalandra wanted to moderate the panel because I think you have, you know, the voice to fill in here. So I definitely agree with you. So thank you for volunteering to do that. Anyone else want to talk about the Zoom on March 24th, which is going to be a community presentation on resources for youth empowerment, youth school resources, youth empowerment? What do y'all think of that title? I'm trying to read through the comments here on improving public health of our youth. I like that. Resources to improve public health of our youth. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah, I think that might work. I do like youth empowerment, but I think, sorry about my background. I think that sometimes we use that a lot, and I don't want people to think this is just another one of those kind of things. If that makes sense.
The resources to improve youth public health. How does that sit with you guys? I don't see any raised hands here.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Janet?
Oh, wait, I'm reading Andre's now. Youth empowerment discussion, providing tools today to impact tomorrow. Boy, Andre, you earned your politician a hat. That is poetic.
What was the option you said before though?
You said resources to, I put the word resources in front, resources to improve youth public health.
That sounds cool too.
Okay. Do we have any strong feelings? I mean, Shalandra has a strong feeling, so I think we should respect that. And I'm going to go with that tentative title. And then once we get this, once we finalize the panel, Terry, I think I'm going to go ahead and put your name on the panel. And once we get Stacy Peterson to come up with the public service announcement that she does to announce things, we'll get it to the committee. Oh, I think we'll have one more meeting before this, but it would be good to just start letting the community know that there's going to be an opportunity for them to participate here. Okay, does anybody else have any comments on the virtual town hall, March 24th?
Janice,
Dennis,
Oh, Catherine, then Chief.
I would like to make a real effort, a real concerted effort to get people to attend. So beyond, putting out a press release and public service announcements, how can we get more people to attend?
Very good question. And that we were trying to do it out in the community. So I am all ears. What do you guys think? The Zoom is, there's pros
It's
and cons. Go ahead.
I said the Zoom is a killer. So we have to make a real concerted effort to, get people to attend, and it's going to be tough.
My fantasy would be to have a Zoom station in different public libraries or in schools where people could come and see it, but I just don't know if we have the budget. I don't know if I'm sure it requires some sort of budget. This guy, George, looks like a very capable AV guy, but I think he's a contractor to the city. And my guess is the city has to pay him. And if we, it kind of violates all the COVID restrictions of, asking people to. So, I mean, Zoom is great because we can sign in from anywhere, USA, but it's bad because it's Zoom. So what do you guys think? Speaking to Catherine's point right now, people are pretty zoomed out.
Well, why don't we have somebody like contact the Greg and Dan show? A lot of people listen to that. That would get the word out that we're having a meeting, even if it's a Zoom meeting.
Okay, you're hired, Lee.
I don't do that.
Okay. Does anybody know this?
I have the idea, you find somebody else.
Yeah, if you give me something, I'll contact Dan.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, Demario. So what we'll do is try to get this panel finalized next week, get it to Stacy, have Stacy get it to everybody. And Demario has volunteered.
don't give it to Stacy.
I'm sorry?
Get it to my public information officer at the police department.
Christina? Okay,
Yeah, no, to Simone.
okay, you're gonna, okay,
So, but make sure that you have all the information that you want so she can create something. Because what she's gonna create is a flyer essentially that'll go on social media. But, you want to have the panelists, the name, if it's this youth empowerment discussion, if that's what you're gonna go with, then cool. Just times, dates, all the information that you're going to want to see on it, so she can create it.
okay, thanks, Chief. Catherine, are we done discussing Catherine? Anybody else who has any connections to media or ideas? I think we're all ears. But Catherine, I think you're right. We need to not have nobody show up. So maybe we could.
I'll see if we can, I can see, I know DeMarcus with 90.7 is always allowing community partners to do drops. And so he might allow us to do a drop for a budget friendly of zero. Hopefully I'll try to lean on lean on him a little bit. But if that's the case though, maybe we can have somebody record a drop. And then, maybe they can circulate it within the radio program. And so I'll lean on him a little bit on that. So they have a pretty good audience.
Thank you. Derek Booth did say that he would put flyers in the food bank boxes that they hand out also, which I thought was very generous. So once we get that flyer put together, Chief, we can get it over to him and he can try to put it out into the community as well.
Yeah, if you have a digital one, we can put it on Facebook. If not, I can throw something together on Canva. That's pretty simple, but just something to put on Facebook.
We'll have it digital, and we just need all the information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Chief, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to make sure, yeah, we'll do it from here. The end of this, yeah, that was it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. So then we're going to move on from the town hall series to I'm working off two different agendas and I don't know why, but the proposed locations of community access to regular meetings, community centers. Maz Perkins told us she was going to research that for us because she wasn't sure if we were allowed to do it. And now she sent me an email that says we are allowed to do it as long as our notice complies with the same way we notice these meetings. So we would have a quorum. We would, it is my goal, as Mr. Jackson said, and I've been talking about this for 2 years, getting ourselves back out into the community. So I think it would be fruitful for us to have our, to have one meeting back at City Hall, because some people on here, I don't ever remember meeting them in person. So I wouldn't know you if I tripped over you on the sidewalk, but I think it would be nice to have a meeting at City Hall. And then after that, we've had several different locations thrown out: East Bluff Community Center, Tree Wind Schools. As Mr. Jackson said, we met down at the Franciscan Complex. We've met at the Gateway Building. We've met at different libraries, and those were actually town hall meetings. I'd like to actually have a conversation about holding our regular monthly meeting out at different places. And it's going to require us getting a fairly significant amount of advance approval for Christina to attend, or whoever is taking our minutes and whatnot. So we've still got, we're going to keep that under unfinished business, but we're making baby steps of progress towards making that happen someday soon. So you can start thinking about the places, but then once again, we have got to ensure that we have a quorum, because we can't invite the community and have everybody show up and then turn around and go home. So it's really imperative that we get our committee active and feeling useful. Does anybody have any questions about that, the meeting out in the community? Okay, Andra gives thumbs up. Don gives thumbs up. Okay, so moving on to new business. Yeah, I don't know why I said there's no new business, but I think under the old business we've created a lot of new business. Does anybody have anything they would like to put on the agenda next month for new business?
Of course I would, Janice.
Okay, Lee, what would you like to propose for next?
Okay, the name of this committee is the Advisory Committee on Police and Public Relations. One of the things I talked about the very first meeting that I was officially a member of this committee, I talked about the police department is actually going out through their walk and talks and all that. They're doing what they can to improve the police relationships with the community. I would like to see this committee, because I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think I would like to see this committee do something with the community so that the community knows that they can also help improve the relations. I've also done some reading on that. And one of the things that was suggested was you go out into the neighborhoods and you talk to the Black matriarch of the family. And you talk to her and get her on board, and she will bring the community together in, say, forming a neighborhood watch. Or when I first mentioned it, Miss King said something about a group that she knows about that is similar to Neighborhood Watch, but I don't know anything about that. So I would like to get more information on it. But I think that some members of the committee could work with the Neighborhood Services Division of PPD, if it's okay with the chief, to do some work in getting out to the neighborhoods and letting the neighborhoods know what they can do. And one of the reasons I bring it up is because there is another neighborhood in Peoria that is talking about forming a neighborhood watch. And some of the people there don't want it because they think it's going to be like the Florida one where you go out and patrol with a gun. That's not the kind of neighborhood watch I'm talking about. So Chief, since I see you, is there any way that we can go out to the community and piggyback on what you all are doing?
I absolutely welcome that. That's what this is. I mean, when you hear the name Advisory Committee on Police Community Relationships, right? We absolutely should be working together. I'll give you an example. We are putting LPRs, license plate recognition systems out, right, into the community, 16 of them to be exact. ACLU sent a email and with a list of questions and comments and concerns about what these are. So they sent it to the council and they sent it to the mayor. I called the ACLU and said, well, I'd like to have a meeting with you because the council and the mayor don't implement. We do. They approve the funds and we go out and implement the program. And part of that was I wanted to have a conversation to sit with them at the table. And what are your concerns? Why is it? What is it that you believe these are? And there's some misconceptions out there. So they have an opportunity. I personally sent them the draft policy and said to them, give me your input on this policy. You are the ACLU, you have complaints. Although you sit in an office in Chicago and don't really understand what's going on here, give me your input. Please give me your input on this. They failed to give us any input up to this point, but we're having meetings with the neighborhood groups. We have called meetings with the neighborhood groups to say, let's come in and explain to you what these are before we even implement them. They're up, but we're not going to go live until training is complete, until the policy is made public, until everybody knows what it is, and specifically in the neighborhoods where they're in. To me, that is what community, part of this, engage in the community. And I think this is where I feel that part of this group also fits in, to understand what this is. So you're able to say, community, if they have questions, if people have questions in the community, they should be coming to you the same way I look at the NAACP. People are going to go reach out to the NAACP for questions. And I meet with Pastor Hightower quite a bit, and we talk. And if there's things, I pass information on to him. You should be part of that conversation as well. And when we do our walk and talks, and we'll start in the spring, you can absolutely come out and walk along with us. We'd love it. And any of our other community engagement efforts and things that we do. I meet with the clergy once a month. I meet with the women that have been connected with the violence once a month, the survivors. I have a youth advisory committee I meet, and you're welcome to come in and be part of those and sit in and see what's going on. Absolutely. That was a long answer to a short question. I apologize.
Thank you, Chief. You just gave me a new agenda item for next month. Can you give us an update on those policies and procedures next month when you guys, or just keep us informed? Because I have a lot of questions about how those plates are, how the information you get from the plates are going to be used. Would you be okay if I put that on the agenda?
Yes, you'll be late because we've already, by the 21st, we are going live. And that's why these meetings have started and have started to occur. I would be more than happy to send you the policy. Yes, we could definitely talk about it next month, but I think you should know about it sooner than next month.
Okay, well, can you hold that thought and tell us in 5 minutes? We're about to get down to your updates, so maybe people can ask questions about that in a second.
Sure. Yep, no problem. Let me get my information out.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Does anybody have anything else regarding new business for next month? Okay, so I think we have some ideas of some new business, some more community interactions. Because as Mr. Jackson said, I do think it's important for the community to know who we are and to know that they can bring complaints or compliments to us, as well as downloading that form and taking it to the police. So we do need people to know who we are in town. So thank you for that. Okay, so Chief just left his office because the next agenda item belongs to him. So does anybody have anything to say until we see Chief show up again here?
I'm sending Greg a message now to see if we can have something on his show, something advertised. I don't know if he'll probably have you call in or something and you can kind of talk about it real quick, but I'll see what he get.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's Chief. So Chief, I'm gonna just, I'm gonna throw you a softball because actually number 3 of my questions for you actually was, you know, you and I had talked about a community calendar. You said you have an internal calendar at the police department about what's going on in the community that potentially we'd be able to check out. Is there anything this month that the committee should be aware of that is happening out that you want to share with us?
In 1 second, I'm pulling up a calendar now.
Okay.
Calendar evolves daily.
Yeah, I bet it does.
And you know, it's new here, so I got to constantly remind people, make sure we get stuff on the calendar. I know there was something that we're doing with the district, but I'm trying to figure. So next Friday at Manual with Tri-County Urban League from 10 to 12, we will be having, Boone, are you aware of this lunch that we're doing? I just got this today.
I think I just saw something today on it too.
Yeah, there's been conversations today. But I believe here in the next, there's something that we're doing with the schools on Fridays, and we'll be going there and having lunch with the kids and just establishing relationships. So that's one thing that's going to happen. Right now, we're currently working on an adopt a school program. We want to adopt a middle school, have officers adopt a middle school to have one person that can go and, you know, since there's SROs, you know, Boone has his officers there, but to have a person that's in our uniform that the kids can recognize and establish a relationship with, and nurture that. What we're doing is that. So as we get dates, you know, I can't share the calendar with you because apparently I talked to our IT guy. It's you have to be part of our system here to be able to see our calendar. Janice, I think somebody spoke to you about that. We weren't able to, and we have a calendar with just a shared calendar where we have all our events. We'll put them on there so that other officers and supervisors can look on the calendar, and whether it's a recruitment, whether it's some explorer events, etc., are able to look on there and see what's going on. Currently, right now, what we have is so next week on the 15th, we're going to be in the Manor neighborhood. There's a meeting there at the Madison Manor neighborhood meeting at 6:30 p.m. The next day, we'll have a 6 p.m. one at Tanglewood and Hawthorne Hills Neighborhood Association meeting. And then our last one is on Saturday morning at 10:30. That's the South. Jesse McGowan put something together for me on that one. So I'm trying to, that neighborhood.
Maybe we could add that when on your, under number 6 on your other notable dates or whatever, maybe the people that represent those districts, if that neighborhood association is in there, like I'm at large, everyone, if we could just maybe add that, not to have to make you do this on the fly, but share things you think community members might want to participate in out in the community.
If you live in those neighborhoods, you probably know about it now already.
Yeah, I don't live in that neighborhood. So yeah, so
near those neighborhoods, yeah. So I have did you have another question before I move on?
Yeah, I have a question, but I don't want to. Why don't you give us your police updates, and then I'll wait until afterwards.
Well, I didn't have any real police updates because last time I was told, well, we don't want to hear about arrest and these things and all this other stuff. So what do you want to hear?
I think last time I forgot. I really apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I said, you know, we're doing a lot of good things here at the PD. We have a lot of things that we're moving forward. I just talked about that adopt the school program that we're doing. The Explorer program is coming back. We're working on that. We have a new clergy initiative inside a chaplain's program, more of a robust chaplain program inside the police department. But I wasn't sure if those were the things you want to hear about. So I want to be clear on what this group wants to hear about specifically. What we've been working on now, obviously, is our anti-violence initiative that you see the press releases that we put out. But more importantly, is these LPRs is what I wanted to kind of get to. If you're ready for that, I have Captain McCall in here with me, who has taken the lead along with Captain Briggs on this. And so I want to let him go ahead and speak on the LPRs and what they are and what we're doing with them. We really want to just be transparent with the community and let them know that these are not stoplight cameras. I don't have an officer sitting in front of a monitor all day monitoring videos. They don't take videos, they take pictures, and it only takes a picture of the whole vehicle and the back plate. But I'll let Captain McCall step on in here.
Yeah, I think you said it for me. So we're using technology to help us out. Just like we use ShotSpotter, we're using LPR, which is license plate recognition cameras. Same technology if you go on a tollway where it takes a picture of your car and your plate. This does the same thing. It doesn't take images of a person driving. You may be able to catch an image, but more importantly, you're able to catch what kind of vehicle it is and the license plate. And then we have a database that we keep stuff in that database for 30 days. And in that database, if we have a crime or something happens, just say your car got stolen, you gave us the plate number, we're able to put that plate number into license plate recognition database. And all the cameras that we have around the city, if they pick up that vehicle, it'll tell us exactly what time the car came by that camera. So it's just another tool in our chest, our war chest, if you will, against crime. So you got any like particular questions about it? I mean, some people think, like the chief said, is it going to take a picture of me? Can officers use it illegally or unauthorized use? And in our policy clearly states that if an officer uses the system unauthorized or unauthorized use, that he could be terminated, up to termination, discipline. So the policy is real strict. It's just used as another tool to help us in fighting crime. You know, we have a lot of stolen cars. Sometimes we get missing people or a kidnapping, and that technology kind of will help us out.
Are these going to be the same cameras that are going to be on the school buses?
No, ma'am. I'm not for sure what technology the school bus have.
No, those are videos. Those will catch videos of vehicles driving past the stop arm. Obviously, that's something the schools do. I think Boone might have a better answer to that question than we have, because we're not really doing anything with it on our end.
Yeah, these cameras doesn't take video, they just take snapshot. So it's motion activated. So as the vehicle goes by, it'll take a snapshot and it takes thousands and thousands of pictures. We don't own the information. We don't have a database here. That's owned by Flock Safety, which is the manufacturer of the cameras. And so we won't know what the camera take a picture of until we go into the database and request or query information. And we have to have a complete plate number to query the system.
I have a question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had, at one time, I had cameras on my house, but the gunshots that were kept showing up in the same place were in the blind spot for my cameras. If this camera is put in, let's say where my blind spot was, I'm not asking for it, I'm just asking. If there had been a camera in that blind spot, could you have gone back and looked to see where the gunshots were coming from?
Well, this is just used for vehicle technology.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't pick up audio. It won't give us a location of a gunshot.
Well, this one will. For not the gunshot portion, we're going to have a ShotSpotter technology on these to compare with our ShotSpotter system that we have now. So it will have a ShotSpotter system on it, but we're only using that. We're trying to see and compare. ShotSpotter costs a lot of money. And if we're able to later on down the road get a bigger bang for our buck, we may be able to use our Flock cameras. But yes, they only take a snapshot of the vehicle and the plate, and that's it. But it will have, so I want to make sure that we're representing this right. There will be a ShotSpotter alert system on it for us to be able to compare now to see how well that one works compared to ShotSpotter. And if it works as good as ShotSpotter or better, we may get rid of ShotSpotter later and use a flock system instead, which will later on also work well with some of the other technologies that we're putting into the department when we're talking about our body cameras and cameras inside the department, et cetera, through Axon. So.
Thank you for explaining all that. So you mentioned that you're going to have 16 installed and up in operations by the 21st. How are the 16 locations chosen? Is it going to be public where they are? And then the next thing I heard was somebody else owns the photos. I have a son who just started a degree, graduate degree in privacy engineering. What sort of privacy, like with someone else other than the city owning the photos, how do you get access to them, protect privacy, and all the other complicated things that go along with that?
So no, we will not be telling you where the cameras are. We want people to be able to drive by those cameras, right? So there's an amber alert, there's a silver alert, whatever. It won't be hard for people to figure out where they're at, but we're not just going to share where they're at. Two, your question was what?
Well, I mean, I kind of want to know what, if you don't tell us where they are, what are the metrics you're using to decide?
Where they're placed is, so based on our crime data now, where we are seeing the most, where we're seeing accidents and not just accidents, but gunfire, violence and crime, where these areas intersect and where we're having the hotspots at, those are the areas where these cameras are going to be at. So it's based on our data.
So it's mostly violent crime that we're talking about here.
Right.
Your data, the data.
So we're looking at data, but we're also looking at where the ingress and egress into these areas, right? Where our data shows that crime is occurring. So it's not hard to figure out where crime is occurring, right? If we're going out on the scene and we find shell casing in this area every time there's a shot spotter, well, this might be an area where there's high traffic and there's violence. So again, the important part, I think, is to remember that we're not retaining this information. We're getting rid of this information after 30 days, unless it becomes part of evidence, right? Then that goes into some other database, because then we'll hold on to that statutorily for evidence. But system, it deletes after 30 days.
So what were some of the questions the ACLU had concerns about that you thought were valid, not if there were trivial ones? What were there some that
I'd have to pull up that email and tell you.
Well, I mean, you don't have just from memory that if people approach us in the community.
Oh, well, one of them is, are these stoplight cameras? Are we taking videos? Are we going on private property? No. So the images that are taken is just on the public way. It's not even the front of the vehicle, it's the back of the vehicle, and it kind of gets the whole vehicle. And then the plate that it zooms in. So it's not zooming in the front of the vehicle where it can see who the driver is and the passengers. That's not the purpose of the cameras. It just gets the plate. They're not stoplight cameras. So we're not sending tickets out. We're not monitoring for speed. We're not sitting somebody behind a monitor like we are right now. Things of that nature is some of the questions that have come up. We've gone to these neighborhood groups and discussed it. We have the policy. The policy is very clear. It's a very stringent policy on authorized use, prohibited use, administration of it, information security and storage, procedures, maintenance training, audit procedures. Very extensive policy that we put together, and we'll send you the policy, and you can share it with the group.
Yeah, I just think in case anybody here is approached and needs information about what's going on in the community, that it's useful to have that information. So thank you for.
Yeah, I'll send you that policy here in a few seconds.
So I have a couple more questions. Does anybody else want to tell the chief what they want to hear on a monthly basis? Is there any particular thing that's on your mind?
Yeah, I'd just like to have some clarity as to what this group wants to hear from me, from the police department. I kind of feel like I sit here in this meeting and you guys have your conversations and that's great. But what do you want from me? When I think of the name of the group, and obviously I know some of the things you guys as a group want to do, I just, on the community relations side, is there something you want to hear? Is there, you know, I don't know. I just need some guidance from you on what it is you want to hear. I think Janice and I have spoken about this in the past, where I'm not absolutely sure, if I'm being honest, as the total mission of this group. And so if I can have that and know what it is you want from me, I'm here. I'm here as a resource. I'm here to provide whatever it is you need. But I just want to have some guidance just from the group.
So in the past, the chief would come and just read crime statistics. And I think that we can look those up online. There is, I guess, if we go back to the way Mr. Jackson described the mission of the group about the complaint process, he did also give us statistics on complaints and whether, you know, how many complaints were upheld, how many were dismissed. I don't know if the committee wants to hear about that. I kind of want to open the floor and let people talk. I don't have a huge tolerance for being able to hearing about things we can just go look up online. So I really enjoy hearing more about what's happening in the community, what you all are doing. Andre has his hand up.
I was going to say, I think it'd be, good for us to know the complaints, that have been, brought forth and, the outcomes of those, whether they've been sustained or not. Because if you look at, essentially the reason behind the committee is to field, complaints that have gone through the process through Peoria Police Department. And then if the citizen doesn't agree with that finding, then they come to us to essentially review it. And so it would just be good for us to know if complaints are going through you all and the outcomes of those, or if they're not, so then that way when people are asking us in the community, what are you all doing? And, we're able to, be properly able to answer that question based off the functionality of what our committee is designed to do. I think over the last couple of years, we've tried to find other things to do with this committee because to your point, Chief, we know we can only do so much. And so we've really tried to expand our reach and, whether that's talk about community resources and other things that aren't necessarily in the purview of the committee, but we know though that we need to do more based off, just fielding complaints that, as Mr. Jackson said earlier, he's only been around for one, and in my time of being on the committee, we had someone come and speak to us, but I don't think she ever went through our process of, challenging. I don't even know if she ended up filing a complaint at all. I think we might have just been a sounding board that night, and I don't think anything ever came from that.
Thanks, Andre. So I think we'll leave that on under number 6, the current and pending formal complaints. I don't think we ever heard any names. It was just how many were sustained, how many went through. Terry, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Chief Echeverria, first and foremost, I want to commend you for outstanding work you've been doing since you've been in this role. Transparency, sir, is key. Before acting, Chief Theobald, now you and your assistant chief, the PD have been very tight-lipped, even with us, even with this committee. They have been very tight-lipped about certain things going on. I know we respect a lot of investigations. You got to be, proceed with caution. But before, like I said, acting Chief Theobald, yourself and the new chief, you guys have been very open, very honest, very transparent. And moving forward, I appreciate that we just keep that relationship.
No problem. So what I'm hearing so far is, and what I'll do is, I think what will be more important is I have an internal affairs lieutenant for him to be at this meeting, to be able to talk about, well, how many complaints have we received externally, right? And for one, how many complaints have we received externally? And then how many complaints do we have internally, which means just so you people understand, internally means our bosses, somebody is looking at something, we found something wrong, and we've opened up an internal investigation per se, internally. And how many have we received from external? How many complaints have we received from community members expressing a complaint that our internal affairs lieutenant may be following up on? And then if they're sustained or not sustained. And that's easy enough. That's easy enough. We will make that happen.
I think that would be useful. It was useful when he came. Is there a new one or was it
No, there's a new one now. Yep.
And his name is?
Deeb, Lieutenant Deeb.
Deeb. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Andre, did you have a question? Or was that just a?
And again, I know, specifics, I don't know how deep you can go, but even if there's some themes of complaints, that would be good too, just so that way, if there's different categories, or we see any trends or anything, I think that'd be helpful.
So do citizens still have the right to file a complaint with other agencies in the community? And if so, do those agencies have blank copies of complaint forms that can be used?
I know that the NAACP can take complaints. And I know this group should be able to take complaints. Whether this group has a form or not, I can't answer that question. I'm not sure. Janice, do you know?
We uncovered an email address that is on the back. So to file a complaint, I think you can go to the police station, but there's also online, buried deep into the city website, under the police department, there's 3 lines. There's a complaint form in English, a complaint form in Spanish, and a link, I believe, to a email address that the new assistant chief got linked to me and Allison recently. We did a test run. I got the test email. I have not gotten anything since that time. There have been some shenanigans. I will say on the complaint form at one point in time, there was a requirement to have it notarized, and we requested that they take it off, and they took it off. And then all of a sudden it came back again. And I believe the new assistant chief also got that taken off of the form. Now that
I want to stop you. When you say shenanigans, we're not playing shenanigans over here, Janice.
Well,
if there was something that was up there, it may have been up there with its old, and it's buried deep in there. The city is working on a new website now. I hate our website. Our website is horrible, and things should be more clearly and upfront. I've said we need to have a transparency dashboard, and that's something that we're going to be working on and get it up there. I'm not a fan of the word shenanigans. We don't do that.
I should say
while I'm here.
You should have the before and after Chief E. Okay, so this was before Chief E, because we had, this was years ago. This
all right.
Take it off, and then all of a sudden it showed up again. So now you guys got it off. So we thank you for that. So I think when you get your new website up, we could maybe make it easier for people to make a complaint.
Absolutely. And I when we've working through this process, the PIO that I have is working through it with the city. We want these things right up front. There's nothing here for us to hide.
Right.
Everything, as we move forward and we clean up, there's some old, you can look at the website, it's horrible. I agree with you 100%. It needs to be better, and it needs to be cleaner, and things need to be more customer friendly, more accessible and easy to do.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, so we are pushing for time here. It would be nice to invite Lieutenant Deeb since he's new, because I think it was very useful when, what was the previous one's name? I have it down in old notes. Huff, yes.
Yeah, well, Lieutenant Deeb is going to be at all the next ones, because he's going to give you this.
Okay.
He's the IA lieutenant.
Okay.
So just so the group understands, when a complaint comes in, I don't interject myself. There is a process. I let the process work. When I get a folder that kind of looks like this, it lands on my desk, that's when I take it. And then the investigation has been done. I'll look at it. It'll go to the assistant chief. He'll look. He'll make some recommendations to me. He'll give me a narrative of what occurred. I will read through it all. And then I'll make a final decision on what the remedy is on it, if you will. But I don't interject myself into the complaint process. I never want anybody to say, well, the chief came into the office and he swayed the investigation. You will never get that from this chief. There's a process. There's an internal affairs lieutenant. We let the process go through the process. And when it finally gets to me, that's where I know, and I'll look at it. Now, in between, depending on what it is, right? There may be some information to say, hey, chief, there's a serious complaint that came in. I may need to put an officer on administrative leave immediately based on a complaint, right? Pending the investigation, I may not want the officer in the building. I may not want the officer to have police powers, depending on what this complaint is. So if I have a complaint, then, you know, alleged, it depends. I could give you many examples, but there may be some decisions, but I don't interject myself in the complaint process.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So yeah, we'll look forward to Lieutenant Deeb coming on. So let's keep that under the general police updates. There are a couple comments in the chat. You guys can take a look at them. Chief, I did ask you about the private company and privacy, and Joyce asks, we are almost to the place where we're having the citizens' opportunity to address the committee. Christina, do we have any citizens other than Joyce? And Joyce, did you want to address the committee? So
You want me to go now, or you want to wait for Christina?
let me just let Christina answer so I know how much time we have to give you.
I didn't receive any.
Okay, thanks, Christina. Okay, Joyce.
Yeah, I don't have, I would like, I am interested in the follow-up on the privacy issue with the 30 days if the data isn't known. I'm saying if the data is supposed to be deleted, but we don't own it, what's the process that company uses if it's their data?
Yeah, we'll have to get that information specifically to you.
Okay.
Captain Briggs was kind of the captain that overseen
Okay.
the implementation of this and working with Flock. But we could get that information to you.
Okay,
We
sounds good.
won't have it after 30 days is what we know.
Yeah, we just don't, I think I'd be concerned if it was going to be the data, the owner of the data used it for other reasons. I don't know what that might be, but
Yeah,
people
me
think
neither.
None of us do.
It's a license plate, and yeah, I'm not sure. So we'll get that information
Yeah,
to
thank you.
Janice.
What is Flock? How do you spell that? What is Flock?
FLOCK.
Okay, and is that the name of the system when you talked
Yeah.
about LPRs? Like, okay, that's the name. So I'd like to add one more. Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah.
I'd like to add one more thing, maybe for new business for next meeting. Chief, I did hear you talk to the city council. I don't know if it was a couple meetings ago about diversity goals, and I know that at some point, Mr. Jackson, that was a concern of this committee. So if you could maybe at your convenience, we could put that on the agenda, the diversity goals for the department, and see where we are. I know it's all pre-Chief EE, but we want to just see where we stand today, because periodically I think it would be good to get an update on that. The composition of the force and the, you said the Explorers program is starting up again. That's encouraging. And I think things like that we won't necessarily see unless people are nerds like me and listen to city council meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get you that. I pushed the link to you guys for a legislative bill that we're working on to get a mental health co-response model in at the police department. Social workers in juvenile and social workers in our major investigations. But behind all of this is I've had a extensive conversation with the Bradley president to create a pathway for internships here with those social workers. So, and that to me is another, obviously a pathway to recruitment and diversifying the police department. So Diversity is always at the top of my list. Just look at me.
There was an ordinance created as a result of this committee, diversity ordinance, that requires the city to meet certain goals within a certain period of time. Thanks to the work of our good friend Al Hooks, who just passed away. And I don't know what's happened to that ordinance. I don't know. It was applicable to not only the police department, but also the fire department. So, but I don't know what the status is. Maybe we can get it.
We just did a presentation on that, Mr. Jackson, to the council, both the fire chief and myself. And I know on the police side, we need to go back and reevaluate those goals. The goals were very aggressive goals. And when you look at it historically, we've moved maybe 3% up or down somewhere. And we need to, if we want to be on track and really want to achieve some goals, we need to reevaluate the goals. And I know the council, I think Councilman Allen may have asked a question that night about that specifically. And so did the mayor about those goals. And we need to go back to the drawing table to reevaluate what those goals really should look like.
All right, up or downwards?
Say again?
Boy, you want to reevaluate upwards or downwards?
Well, if I show you the chart, I think we were way off for the last several years. They've only moved 3% here or there.
Right.
And I think the goals were like 10%, and we only hit it at 3%. And I'm not giving you exacts. I have to look back at it, but we just need to reevaluate. Part of it right now, we're recruiting. Captain McCall is actually leading the interview process right. Well, they just finished it this week. I don't know what we ended up with. He hasn't briefed me yet on that. I was pleasantly happy with our last group. I think our recruitment efforts, we're really going to be pushing some new recruitment efforts and some things that we are going to be doing differently. Yeah, it's been very difficult for everybody during this time to recruit.
Well,
part of this committee's work ought to be to meet with you and reassess that ordinance and see how it needs to be modified. But it was intended to be aggressive because at the time that we entered into the agreement to have that ordinance, recruitment in the department was dismal at best. So we can revisit that at future meetings as well.
yeah, I'd love to, if we, with your availability, Chief, I'd love to put that on the agenda to see that maybe some sort of, it doesn't need to be your full presentation, whatever you want to share with us about where the department is. So I'll put that on for next time, unless I hear otherwise from you.
Well, you might as well give me the whole meeting then, because you gave me, we got quite a bit. So
Okay, good. It'll be lively. Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? Okay, do we have a motion? Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it. We need to see all your smiling faces, and hopefully we'll be back in person soon. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Did you want to? I have it up on my screen if you want to see the milestones briefly. I can share it with you if you guys want to see it. If
You
not,
guys hungry for dinner? Let's do it.
all right. Let me see. I'm going to share. Christina, can you let me share?
Tina gonna allow you to do that?
Is she in there?
She was.
Let's see.
Try it now.
Oh, I got it. There we go. Okay, can you, hold on a second. Can you see that? Do you guys see the milestones there?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can. Do you
Okay.
want-
Yes.
So if you see where we started, right? 18.6. And we want to, by 2025, be at 40.5. As of 2022, we only made, we wanted to be at 31%. We're at 21%.
Wow.
You see?
So
there-
what does that mean? 21% of what and who is where and why? I mean, what is,
I assume it means 21% of the department is, it would be,
but would be men, women, and minorities.
so how does that compare to the general I guess, I think we need more time on this because like this to ask me, how does that compare to the general population? So I think we need to see that next to what does Peoria look like? I mean, is it the goal to have the force look like the community?
yes, that's in
Yes.
the ordinance.
So
That's
I guess,
exactly what's in the ordinance, right?
Right.
so I guess the question, I'd sure hate, if that's still what the community looks like, I'd sure hate to change the goals just to make us feel better that we're achieving them, but
I don't think it's to make us feel bad. You know, there has to be some realistic goals as well. And you got some historical perspective here from 2018 on up. And you know, you can match some of these things with what has happened nationally, right? If you want to really look at it historically, and you have to dive much deeper than this to look at why certain things happen in certain years, right? And why I can tell you that when I started 20 years ago, there was 600 people in line to take a police test. Right. And so when I talk to my counterparts, I communicate with the Rockford chief weekly, the Elgin chief weekly. You know, these are friends of mine and we compare notes. They are seeing the same things in their areas. It's no different anywhere else. We need to look at different ways to recruit. We need to look at different tests. We need to find ways to lower the barrier of entry without lowering the standard to get in. So all of us are struggling with the same thing. And if you think back 20 years ago, there was a time there where they were hiring mass amounts of officers during the Clinton era. Now we're at a time where those mass amount of officers are retiring. And so they've retired and they're retiring more people at a higher rate than we can hire people because there's not enough people to get in. I have a list of 25 people that came for an interview. I need to hire 10. We're struggling. And every department is going through this. It's not just Peoria. So don't believe that it's here. It's not just here. It's everywhere. I came from Elgin where we were high and all of a sudden they're seeing the same issues, you know, double budget than we have here, much better technology, much better equipment. Yet they're still seeing the same issues that we're seeing here. So we have to sit back at the drawing board. Those are the things that we're doing here inside when we talk about recruitment. That falls under Captain McCall now. What are we doing? How are we being more technology savvy to get people and trying to figure out a way to change our process a little bit to make it a little bit easier for people to get, not easier as in, but easier to navigate through, consolidate a little bit. Anyway, that's another topic for another day, right?
Right. Well, but it is trending in the wrong direction, it looks like.
Yeah. And so this is something to look at. And Janice, I can send you this. This is the presentation that I gave to the council. And so I can send you this whole PowerPoint and you can share it with the group.
yeah, I'd love to see it because you're saying this is the entire department, not just officers. So the social workers that you all want and the mental health model that this new ordinance proposes, if you end up with some, it sounds like you're having a particularly difficult time getting officers. Will those
officers,
right? Will those mental health workers, they won't be officers, but will they count towards your diversity if they, you know, so are there other ways to achieve the goal? If the problem is with officers, I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So I really would love to.
The problem is definitely in policing. If you look at the administrative staff here, most of them, probably 90% are women, right? So but when you talk about police officers, the bigger percentage is men, white males to be specific. And so, yes, so we have to be intentional on how we recruit. I don't have to recruit, and we talk about this all the time. I don't have to recruit for white males. I have to intentionally recruit for male blacks, female Hispanics, male Hispanics, and females in general. And so, so we have to have recruiting strategies that are intentional for that, because we will get white males. That's not going to be an issue for us to get.
Well, I wonder if, if the goal here is to get the people on the street to look like the people that live on the street, that if you get the mental health workers and the social workers, if they're going to be the people on the street, if that helps, if they team up with officers, if that helps with that demographic, I don't know. I'm just, like I said,
my goal is to get police officers. The problem, the community doesn't have an issue with the social work. The community doesn't have an issue with Christina, my admin assistant, or the records clerks. The issues are with the police and the interactions with police. I'm saying they're bad, but we have to have people that have this authority to look like our community. We need to have police officers that look like our community, because we're the ones policing people.
That's what the ordinance addressed, was the actual officers hired, not support staff, but officers hired as well. The ordinance is dedicated to improving the number of African Americans, male or female, in the department as police officers.
Yeah, and it's a lot of factors. Just like Chief said, when I applied with Peoria Police in 2004, we were at the Civic Center. We had over 400 people in that Civic Center applying for the job. And I think at one time, Chief, you said there was only 30-something people that applied at one time. Now, it's a seismic shift. But then also there were pieces to the type of testing that was done. And I think Captain McCall can kind of address this too. There was a time where they would ask questions in polygraph. Did you have friends that were gang affiliated, or stuff like that? And they could use those to root out specific officers. I grew up south of Peoria. I had a ton of gang friends, and depending on how I could have answered that could root me out or give someone an excuse to root me out. Yeah. Or when you take the psychological and you answer certain questions a certain way because you grew up in a certain area and suffered certain traumas that other people didn't, they could use that to exclude you. So those are things, we got to walk and chew gum and be able to get all of those factors and try to interject. And again, it's not just as African-American male, around a lot of African-American males, it's not popular to be police nowadays. So it's a lot harder to recruit officers that look like us. So yeah.
At one point in time, it was my contention that the polygraph exam was designed to exclude African Americans who applied to be police officers. And that's one of the questions they asked. Do you know anyone that was that may be a gang member? Well, if you grew up like I did in the Manual District, it was almost impossible not to know somebody that had been in a gang or soon became a gang member, and that excluded you from being on a police department. Well, that's a silly question, and but yet the leadership in Peoria used that as a reason to exclude a lot of applicants from becoming police officers. It's too bad. We lost a lot of good people as a result of that, but I understand that's changed now, so that's a good thing.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad they didn't ask me that question 20-some years ago. I wouldn't be sitting here.
I'm telling you,
because
my grandfather was a police officer in Peoria, but for his intervention, I probably would have been on the other side of that question, So it was impossible not to know somebody that you grew up with that may have ended up in a gang. But
I could, yeah, I can assure everybody that's on here right now that as a Hispanic male, an Afro-Latino, that I want to see diversity in our police department, right? I want to see more women, and I want to see more diverse candidates. I want the best candidates. You know, I'm not giving positions to people because of what they look like. We want the best candidates, but I want diverse candidates. Captain McCall, I'm sure feels the same way, and he's overseeing recruitment for the police department. And we're gonna do everything in our power to get the best candidates here and recruit the most diverse population of candidates that we can to get them here. And so those are the things that we're working on. And we got to hire 10 more right now that are going, and then we got another 10 in September. We'll see what they're looking like, but we did have it was a diverse pool of candidates. So I'm hoping it starts to trend the other way. And it appears to be going that way. We're really starting to see a lot more women applying. And so it seems like, you know, a lot more than men sometimes. So.
Well, thank you all for that lively conversation. I think we would like maybe abbreviated version of your report, just to let us know maybe next time. So thank you so much. And
I'll send you the email with it too.
Okay, yeah, do email, because I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to catch if you send me an email, put that other link you have in there too, because I'm not sure I'm gonna capture it at the same, before this whole Zoom turns off. So the one to that ordinance that you put in there, please.
Yep.
I'm not sure I can walk and chew gum at the same time without turning something off. So do we have a motion to adjourn? I think people are probably hungry.
So move.
Okay, Demario, and a second.
Second.
Okay, Lee Lang seconds, and I'll go through vote. Catherine? Okay, you were unmuted, now you're muted. Everybody's tired.
All right, yes.
Okay, I say yes. Lee?
Approved.
Chief? Chief E?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Andre?
Yes.
Shalandra?
Yes.
Demario?
Yes.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Great
Thank you.
conversation. Good
All
work.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.